Okay, so I may have touched on this subject before, but I want to be a bit more specific. So the last 24 hours or so, I've been having a lot of back and forth with people on a video entitled Chinese Ambassador Interviewed by UK Journalists. That's not the exact title, but I'll put a link here anyway. Anyway, this was around the time of the state visit, and the Chinese ambassador to the United Kingdom was interviewed by, I think it was a BBC journalist. Well-known journalist, but the guy's name doesn't come to me right now. I'm making this video spontaneously. That's not really the point. The point is the content of the discourse that was in the comment thread. Um, Frankly, it really pisses me off, some of the attitudes that I was seeing, and I didn't hold back in terms of expressing what I thought of those attitudes. Um, didn't exactly make myself popular, but there you go. Sometimes you have to just speak up for what you believe. So this is the deal. In this interview, the journalist was asking some challenging questions about contentious issues like human rights, um, in relation to Britain's relation to China, which is always a controversial subject. But a large number of people, and the fact of the matter is they were Chinese. There's no escaping that. It's not a racist viewpoint. It's just the way it is. A large number of Chinese nationals came onto the video to lambast what they saw as biased Western media and this sort of thing. And this is sort of a prevailing attitude among a lot of overseas Chinese. It's something that's quite obvious. Um, and you see it on all of these videos. There's every time there's a video like this, they come out of the woodwork and they come out and make the same old tired excuses time and time again about biased Western media. And frankly, that's all they really have to go on. Well, they'll also attack British foreign policy, the contention being that there's double standards. Okay, I want to talk about a bit about the issue of double standards. Um, Firstly, there is a perception, and there was a perception, that's another reason I'm making this video, in the off chance that any of them happen to see this, that I am biased myself. Well, I feel that I always go into these situations objectively insofar as I never blindly say that our side is perfect or that the United Kingdom doesn't have its problems or there aren't things that we have done wrong. And it's predictable the sort of things they'll come out with, like the British Empire done this and that, etc., etc. Um, the thing is, as a British person, I am the first to admit that we done those things, but frankly, I'm tired of having to regurgitate that line over and over again. I acknowledge it. I do acknowledge it, but it's not for me to constantly have to defend our side. I think just for once, it would be nice if some of these people could show a little bit of humility and actually admit that they may not be right about everything. Um, so, in regards to the actual scenario of this journalist asking the ambassador questions, they seem to think he shouldn't be doing that. So my question is, do they believe that he should slavishly kowtow to the ambassador and just slavishly agree with everything the man is saying? Their perception is that it's rude. My perception is he is doing his job. Our government may be kowtowing to Beijing, but our journalists sure as hell should not be doing that. And if they did, they would be criticised. Um, that's something that these people need to understand. As for it being racist, well, I'm just calling a kettle a kettle. The people who are commenting are mostly Chinese. There's a few Britons there, but most of them are Chinese. Now that's just a fact. It's nothing to do with racial superiority or anything like that. Um, I just think their attitude is very arrogant because what they're doing is they're accusing the journalist of imposing Western standards on China without looking in the mirror and thinking actually they're imposing Chinese journalism standards in Britain. This interview was in Britain. It was in Britain. the journalist was doing his job. It wasn't an interview in China. Now, in China, the media is absolutely controlled. There's no journalistic freedom whatsoever because Xinhua and CCTV and other state broadcasters are entirely subservient to the Communist Party. That's a fact. It's an absolute fact. Um, does that mean the British media is blameless? Far from it. Certainly, anyone who's been following my channel for a while will see that I have been pretty outspoken, for example, on the British tabloids. I think they're an utter disgrace. So this is not a case that I think the British media is faultless. It's rather a case of focusing on their utter hypocrisy because they're condemning this journalist for doing his job when my impression is they actually want him to kowtow and just agree with everything the ambassador is saying. That's how things work in China. It's not how things work here. And they need to understand that and accept that. And if they're students studying here, they bloody well need to respect our culture. And in our culture, journalists are expected to ask important people tough questions. In fact, I almost hope they do see this video because some of them are already trying to portray me as this white supremacist and other utterly baseless claims. Um, I always find these situations awkward, I'll admit that. The reason I get into them is because I don't think that that sort of arrogant nationalism, and that's what it is, should go unchallenged. I don't think these people should be allowed to come onto videos and voice their vitriol without being challenged. So I've no regrets in doing that, but I don't particularly enjoy it. Um, it's tiresome because I have to repeat the same things over and over again. I hear the same accusations over and over again. Here's the thing, is Western media biased? Sure, but so is every media outlet. The idea that only the Western media is biased is ridiculous. But bias or not, the fundamental principle remains that journalists should be free to ask tough questions. That's something these morons can't seem to understand. And it does really frustrate me because in the West, we have a very big emphasis on free expression. So they have the freedom to come on to sites like YouTube, which are banned in China, and then use it to stand by a regime that bans websites. It's incredibly hypocritical. It's a very inconsistent position to take. Um, and it sure as hell is the case that Westerners do not have this sort of flexibility within China. They talk about how some Westerners behave badly, and I would agree they do. But we don't have the same flexibility in terms of being able to. I mean, I could not go to China and openly criticize the party on an online forum. No, I'd get a knock in the middle of the night from the state police for being a British spy, most likely, because that is how totalitarian countries work. And I've been to China, I know this. Um, but like I say, it always puts me in an awkward position because despite what people think, they probably think I'm a white supremacist who hates the Chinese. Now, the reality is I happen to have a lot of Chinese friends. I'm not just saying that as a line to sound good, it's a fact. And admittedly, this is something that I deliberately don't discuss with my friends because I don't want to create a gulf between us. But it is something that needs to be said. Um, I think it is true that a lot of the students who come here come from wealthy backgrounds and they personally benefit from the Communist Party. So it's in their interest to defend the Communist Party. That's not slander, it's just, again, it's just a reality. It's based on the plain facts because they can't afford. This is an expensive country to study and they need to be from a pretty comfortable background in order to study here. And I don't begrudge them that. I'm happy about the fact that we have prestigious world class universities. I've no problem with them studying here. But I do think that when the saying, when in Rome do as the Romans do. I do think certain overseas Chinese need to learn that because there is an astonishing arrogance. And a lot of these people seem utterly incapable of ever conceding that there's anything. Basically, if a foreigner says anything about China, then immediately they repeat the same old lines of biased Western media and biased Westerners, blah, blah, blah. It gets so tiresome. Just for once, I would like them to acknowledge some facts. I would like them to show some humility and just admit some facts. So that's it, really. I don't know if any of them will watch this video or not. If any of you guys are watching, I hope you take my words on board. I don't care if you don't like me. But everything I said on the thread was based on conviction, you know? Um, I'm defending the journalist doing his job, and I make no apologies for that. And I think it is astonishingly arrogant for you to come here and demand that British journalists kowtow to your way of thinking. No, this is not China, and British journalists will not do that. If they did, they would be criticised by British people. So I say he's a good journalist doing his job. As for him being excessively rude, well, if you think tough questioning constitutes rudeness, then, you haven't seen rudeness. Rudeness is like swearing in someone's face and throwing insults at them. The journalist was simply asking questions. Get over yourselves and stop being so bloody sensitive.